Africa is the second largest continent in the world, housing a whopping 1.3 billion people. And the CICM call to Africa was to pioneer in terms of penetrating tribes in the area, catechizing and baptizing them, and providing them with socio-economic infrastructures. Our CICM missionaries are scattered all over the area, not only to preach the gospel, but also to help the people uplift their lives. And one of them is Father Oscar Nicolo, who lives and works among people living in dire poverty. Our missionaries are in the front lines of these 5 countries in Africa to answer the needs of the people and to see, discern, and act with them. And over the past 100 years, Christian grew from less than 10% of Africa's population to its nearly 500 million as of 2015.
Sit back as I will take you to the middle of the Atlantic and the Indian Ocean, which is Africa. First is the Cameroon. Cameroon is also well known for its native music styles, particularly Makossa and Bigotsi, and for its successful national football team. Geographical location. Cameroon in West Africa is a mixture of desert plains in the north, mountain in the central regions, and tropical in the rainforest in the south. Population. Cameroon's population is estimated to increase 27,911,548 in 2022, up to 2.52% from 2021. Cameroon's population in 2021 was 27,224,556 people, up to 2.56% from 2020. Also, the country is sparsely inhabited with a population density of about 40 persons per square kilometer, and ranking 167 most populated in the world. Next was the form of government. Cameroon is a republic with a strong president, although Cameroon maintains a multi-party form of government, and the Cameroon's People Democratic Movement, or also called a CPDM, has been in power since 1985. It has a complete power over all branches of the government. Lastly was its economy. Cameroon nevertheless boasts of the best endowed primary commodity economies in sub-Saharan Africa, mainly to its oil reserve and great agricultural conditions.
Now let's go over the issues that affects the general population. First is the high poverty rate in Cameroon. The high poverty rate in Cameroon is due to the population growth outpacing poverty reduction efforts. With 55% of the poor residing in rural areas, their poverty level is considered a rural phenomenon. Second, killings, destruction of property, and torture by government forces. Civilians were killed, tortured, assaulted, and kidnapped by separatist fighters. And according to the United Nations, the crisis caused 700,000 students to drop school in March 2021. Third, human rights abuses. The crime rate in Cameroon is high, and government forces have also been involved in violations of international humanitarian and human rights law, including unlawful killings and arbitrary detentions in response to the armed conflict. Fourth is the sexual orientation and gender identity. Sexual relations between persons of the same sex is punished by up to 5 years in prison in Cameroon's penal code. Police and security personnel have continued to detain and harass people they suspect of being lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender. And lastly, corruption. Healthcare workers said they were given little or no assistance in responding to the pandemic. According to the alleged leaked summary of their report, Cameroon government auditors claimed that ministers and state bodies misappropriated and mismanaged funds from the $338 million National Coronavirus Response Plan.
In 1966, because of low literacy rate and short life expectancy, and the political authority is concentrated in executive branch, in the country is plagued by graft and corruption, the CICM became present in Cameroon. Father Faustin Ambassa and Hudo, CICM, was appointed Bishop of Bauteri by Holy Father Benedict XVI. Father Pedro Marcelos Piñaranda, CICM, arrived on November 1988, and also Father Pamphile Chelele, CICM, are one of our missionary priests in the Archdiocese of Yaoundé, Cameroon, Central Africa. The CICM established and animated Christian communities where peace and hope are prominent. So CICM offers the sacraments on a regular basis and emphasizing the significance of daily prayer. It it also provided socio-educational resources for the young people in the parish. So CICM assisting young people in their education by giving reading, by writing, and computer skills assistance, as well as the technology resources required for learning. So the specific programs or the specific projects and the effects done by the CICM missionaries. First is building the church in Cameron. It was an appeal from Father Pamphile Chilele. They started a major catechetical program having 130 catechumens of a wide variety of ages. The second one is promoting education throughout Cameron by Father Roger Krebser. So it provides consistent pastoral companions, HIP, with the youth of the parish whose personal and spiritual growth will empower them in their own lives. It also provides opportunities for conscious and dignified participation in the liturgy by establishing serious ongoing training. So it is also advocates and facilitates not just computer training, but all areas of education to their parish community wherever possible.
So let's now move on to the Democratic Republic of Congo, the treasure box of Africa. Geographical location. It is located in Central Africa, has a 25-mile coastline on the Atlantic Ocean, but it is otherwise landlocked. It's the second largest country on the continent. Only Algeria is larger. Its population has 94,121,574 as of March 2022 based on the Worldometer elaboration of United Nations data. It has one of the highest fertility rate in the world with 6.11 births per woman. Its population is equivalent to 1.15% of the total world population. Its form of government is the semi-presidential republic, where the head of state is elected through universal suffrage. Its new institutions are the President of the Republic, the government, the parliament, and the judiciary. So, its economy. Domestic agriculture is the main source, food and income for the majority of the population. It's one of the richest countries regarding natural resources. Its gross domestic product is expected to grow by 4.5% in 2022.
Next, let's discuss about the issues affecting the general population of the Democratic Republic of Congo. The first one is the lack in access to quality healthcare. People in some villages of Congo have to walk miles and miles to be able to have a healthcare worker attend to their medical needs. Tragically, people sometimes die due to these awful circumstances. And of course, one of its causes is poverty. Next one is the attacks on civilians by armed groups and government forces. In eastern Congo, numerous armed groups and in some cases, even government security forces attack civilians, killing and wounding many people. In many instances, armed assailants were responsible for sexual violence against women and girls, which is also an issue in Congo. Lastly is the problem in justice and accountability. Some of the military courts and other tribunals adjudicating cases of war crimes and crimes against humanity face serious shortcomings.
Now let us proceed to the discussion of the brief history of the CICM presence in Congo. It all started in 1887 when Jérôme van Artillery became the Superior General of the CICM. In 1888, 3 years after the establishment of the independent state of Congo, the first CICM missionaries were sent out there. August 26 of 1888, Artillery sent the first batch of missionaries or Societies to an already existing post of the White Fathers at the intersection of the Congo and Kasai rivers. In the first few years, 45 Societies left for Congo, and as a result, the mission in China were assigned fewer missionaries. Eventually, the CICM only retained Leopoldville and its surrounding area and the regions of Lower Congo, Equator, Lake Leopold II, and Kasai, which from the religious point of view gave rise to the present CICM provinces of Kinshasa, Boma, Lisala, Inongo, Kananga, and East Kasai.
Okay, so let's now proceed to the specific programs or projects done by CICM missionaries. The first one is the financing of 30 trainees for better health care for those most in need by Father Luis Noy. This project was done to address the problem in healthcare system and to provide the civilians a better access to healthcare. Next is the hundreds of parish schools run by missionary priests. Missionary priests are running hundreds of parish schools in the DRC, working to lift children and their families out of poverty through education. This network of parish schools in the DRC offers children stability, opportunity, and education despite their impoverished circumstances.
The third project done by the CICM is the construction of a clinic and a nursing school in Congo. Donations received were spent on the building construction and acquisition of medicines and medical equipment for the clinic and the nursing school. In the clinic, as it stands now, patients sleep on bamboo beds. There is only one microscope, a couple of blood pressure kits that is shared by the nurses there, and people die for lack of treatment. Pregnant women die for lack of prenatal care, and children die early for lack of care. And so, the diocese in the area still needs a lot of financial support to better improve their services to help the people. The fourth project is the opening of an orphanage for children whose parents have either died of natural causes or as a consequence of wars. The diocese feel that by our ministry we must care for those children. So the donations received were used to assist those kids with their nutrition, with their schooling, with clothes, and above all, with their religious education.
So, let's now move on to Malawi, which is also visited by CICM. First is geographical location. Malawi is a landlocked country in southeastern Africa, endowed with spectacular highlands and extensive lakes. It occupies a narrow curving strip of land along the East African Rift Valley. Lake Nyasa, known as Lake Malawi, occupies for more than 1/5 of the country's total area. So, let's now move on to population. As of March 2022, Malawi's population is around 20 million, 19,952,646 to be specific. Moreover, Malawi's population is equivalent to 0.25 of the world population.
Let's proceed to the form of the government of Malawi. Malawi is a multi-party republic. The Constitution of Malawi that was put into place in 1995 recognizes three branches of government: executive, legislative, and judicial. Also, Malawi is a generally peaceful country and has had stable government since independence in 1964. Next is the economy of Malawi, and as we all know, Malawi is in East Africa, wherein one of the unfortunate country in the world. The Malawi country is heavily dependent and centered on agriculture, wherein most of the population was employed into it. And Malawi remains one of the poorest countries in the world despite making significant economic and structural reforms to sustain economic growth. Moving on to the issues and problems affecting the general population in Malawi. First is the climate change, causing farmers' decisions more difficult as to planting and harvesting. Malnutrition, they have limited access to health facilities and food scarcity. Scarcity of resources, some rural areas have limited access to potable water. And some of the present diseases in Malawi is tuberculosis, malaria, HIV/AIDS, and other tropical diseases. Malawi also faces a number of challenges, including the inadequate finances to support poverty reduction programs, high levels of illiteracy, and critical shortage of capacity in institutions implementing development programs.
Brief history of CICM presence in Malawi. CICM has decided to send a team of 4 missionaries, Peter Ko, Nazario Haparanga, Yukim Kraeng Kirang, and Obi Sumbukeni, to Karonga Diocese and in particular to Chisankwa. Because of the pandemic, the 4 team members who were supposed to carry out a 6-week preparatory session and team building didn't happen. But the pandemic didn't stop them. In fact, the pandemic made them realize that while planning is important, we also have to learn from Mary, be open to God's plan, let go of the plans we have made for ourselves, and leave the plans God has for us. Upon proceeding and arrival in Karonga, Malawi, missionaries overcome hurdles of health protocols caused by the pandemic. Specific programs or projects done by the CICM missionaries. No specific programs are already done by the CICM missionaries based on events, but the Bishop of Karonga Diocese, Bishop Martin M. Timbunga, had appealed to CICM to send missionaries to serve in the diocese. Moreover, to take care of the forgotten people of Karonga. Local Youth Career Clinics Program, Father Frank Nui Ganyama is the youth chaplain for the Archdiocese of Blantyre. He offers pastoral care to the youth in Blantyre's 8 deaneries, secondary schools, college, and to young people in the diocese. He developed a program inviting the young people to come and learn and grow as leaders in their Catholic faith. Archdiocese of Blantyre Local Youth Faith Leadership Training Program, planning to empower young adults to embrace their faith. The mission of Karonga, the Diocese of Karonga, is engaging in socio-economic uplift of the lives of the people they serve. The program is in line with the Council of Fathers of the Second Vatican Council says, the joys and the hopes, the griefs and the anxieties of the men of this age, especially those who are poor or in any way afflicted. These are the joys and hopes, griefs and anxieties of the followers of Christ. This program aims to strengthen the capacity of pastoral agents in order to have efficient and effective collaboration in their pastoral activities while helping them address their socio-economic needs.
Now let's proceed to the missionary works of CICM missionaries in Africa, specifically in Senegal. The geographical location of Senegal is located at the westernmost point of Africa in Atlantic Ocean, surrounded by the continent of Africa, Europe, and America. It is at an intersection of great maritime and aerial routes. The population of Senegal is currently at 17,480,669 as of Sunday, March 6, 2022. It is based on Worldometer elaboration of the latest United Nations data. Senegal's population is equivalent to 0.21% of the total world population. The form of government in Senegal is a multi-party republic. The 2001 constitution provides for a strongly centralized presidential regime. The head of state and government is the president, who is elected by the direct universal adult suffrage and can be elected to 2 7-year terms. The ministers in Senegal are appointed by the president. Senegal has a unicameral legislature, with most members directly elected. The remaining members are indirectly elected. All legislators serve 5-year terms. Judicial, executive, and legislative powers are separated. The economy of Senegal is driven by mining, construction, tourism, fishing, and agriculture, which are the main sources of employment in rural areas despite abundant natural resources in iron, zircon, gas, gold, phosphates, and numerous oil discoveries recently. Senegal's GDP stood at $24.9 billion in 2020 in current terms. Its per capita gross national income was $1,430 in 2020, which makes it at a lower middle-income country.
Issues or problems affecting the general population of Senegal. Aid and public finances. There is still an uncontrollable internal debt that continues to hamper economic activity, and economic agents are nervous about the state's financial capacity to honor its commitments. Another is agricultural independence. The sector is afflicted by numerous problems, including low prices for exports products, difficulties in accessing land and agricultural inputs. Another is education. There are continual delays in the construction of new classrooms and provisions of equipment, and this means that teachers have to do the best they can in precarious shelters. Vocational training is limited in overcrowded teaching premises. Another is access to water and sanitation facilities. The main obstacles to access to water have to do with the cost of connection and of the service, with the lack of networks in poor neighborhoods, especially on the outskirts of urban areas, and with insufficient information about the connection programs. Another is health. According to UNICEF, maternal mortality decreased in the 2005 to 2008 period from 980 to 400 per 100,000 live births, but it is still very high. Two of the most serious problems are the very low rate of birth attended by skilled health personnel.
Another problem of Senegal is the situation of women. Their access to power, land, and jobs is still limited. They form an important part of the informal sector, which is 41%, but make up only 17% of the formal sector. Last problem is the slow progress towards the Millennium Development Goals, or the MDGs. There is little chance of Senegal achieving progress on the various dimensions of Millennium Development Goal 3 to promote gender equality and empower women. It is also very unlikely that the MDGs in the health area goals 4, 5, 6 will be achieved. Let's discuss the CICM mission in Senegal. Their primary goal is bringing the gospel to a primarily Muslim country, working and witnessing among the poor in the suburbs of Dakar as well as in the northern Sahel region. Their missionary companionship in poor or difficult areas is intended to lend consolation and deliver the Christian message of hope to all their neighbors. Last part of Senegal are the CICM programs. In the parish property, they have established barriers made of laterite, a clay-like soil, and sand in the courtyard. For the rectory, they have a future plan that they will construct a second level in the new building where they will transfer all the structures of the old vulnerable building.
The fifth country to be discussed is the country-state of Zambia. To familiarize you more about the place, which is considered as Africa's hidden Sahara gem, keep listening as we continue our discussion. Zambia is a huge, landlocked, resource-rich country in the heart of southern Africa with sparsely populated area and was named after the Zambezi River. On March 2022, the estimated population growth of the Zambian was 19.24 million, which is way higher than the year 2021 with a population of 18.88 million. The Copper Belt's most developed sector, known as the Line of Rail, is served by the railway that connects the Copper Belt to Lusaka, Zambia's capital, and Livingstone, Zambia's border town, which covers more of the population. The central government is represented across Zambia by the provincial government system, in which the president appoints resident ministers to each of the provinces, each of whom is the president's direct representative. Each district has a district council chairman who reports to the provincial deputy minister. The district council chairman is primarily concerned with the political and economic issues.
Economy. Zambia's economy is ranked 154th in the 2022 Index of Economic Freedom with a score of 48.7. Zambia is placed 36 out of 47 countries in sub-Saharan Africa with a score that is lower than the regional and global averages. Despite Zambia having one of the world's fastest growing economies, it remains one of the world's poorest countries. Currently, close to 60% of Zambians live under $2 a day, and the majority of those who earn more barely make ends meet. Indeed, over 40% of them are considered to live in extreme poverty. The impact of COVID-19. As of December 1, 2021, 3,667 deaths had been attributed to the pandemic in Zambia, and the government's response to the crisis ranked 33 among the countries included in this index in terms of its stringency. A considerable fraction of Zambia's population is infected with HIV/AIDS. In 2015, Zambia had the world's 7th highest adult HIV/AIDS prevalence rate, with an estimated 13% of adults aged 15 to 49 being HIV positive. Malaria, on the other hand, is a mosquito-borne disease spread by a bite of female Anopheles mosquito infected with the disease. Tuberculosis kills roughly 5,000 people in Zambia every year. Incidences of HIV/AIDS, malaria, and tuberculosis are concentrated among the poorest people on the planet. In Zambia, a lack of resources, poor transportation and sanitation facilities, and variety of other factors hasten illness, transmission, and severity.
Now, we are down to the brief history entitled Missionaries and the Projects They Did, including also their discoveries. Father Peter Ko arrived in Zambia on 1994 and served for 11 years. During his recent journey to Singapore, he shared his Zambian experience with parishioners at Church of the Holy Spirit. He cited various problems in his talk on challenges of mission in Africa, including tribalism, poverty, HIV or AIDS, orphans, and traditional culture. He also narrated the church success in Zambia. Next, we have Father Anthony Lim, who for the past 14 years has been serving in Zambia. His missionary priorities is to form communities that will seek to respond to the challenges presented by the political and economic realities of the people of Zambia, such as outreach programs in health and education, especially for the orphans and the vulnerable children. Women empowerment projects through small microcredit facilities, farmers cooperatives, and water and sanitation projects. Moving on, the Plymouth Brethren have done missionary works in several countries, including Central Africa, in which they had medical mission in Zambia. Their concept of Christian mission starts with the Great Commission Jesus gave the apostles on a mountain in Galilee. Go, therefore, and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Matthew chapter 28, verse 19. Lastly is Dr. David Livingstone, a Scottish missionary whose discoveries filled in major gaps in the map of the continent, including the massive Victoria Falls of the Zambia-Zimbabwe border.
Let us now move to the Zambia's project and its effects. So for one of this is basic education for children. Many Zambian children do not have access to a good education. Only 1 out of every 3 children receive an early childhood education, and 65% of children in grades 2 and 3 are unable to read or write. They aim to increase access to quality inclusive education with a focus on early childhood and lower basic education as their response. Their approach is to advocate the government for inclusive early childhood care and development education, ensuring marginalized children receive equality education, and advocate for increased budget allocation to early childhood care and development education, and support communities to monitor district government budgets. Secondly, they also focus in fostering democratic governments for the betterment of all the Zambians. Next is their response to HIV/AIDS through promoting cleanliness and excellent way of sanitations for them also to avoid other health diseases and to maintain a good health among Zambians. Next is energy and environmental for sustainable development, where they are into no jeep congestion, meaning no extremely crowded and blocked with traffic or people. Next is they also focus on promoting gender equality, banana plantation as their source of income, projects on food shelter, education, healthcare, hope for orphans, and for the environmental impacts.
There were so many things done by the CICM missionaries, all thanks to their bravery and sacrifices, and of course, to the generosity of those that supported the cause. However, there are still many projects that need to be done not only in Africa, but on the entire world. And if you want to share your love to these people, just follow the steps below and be as generous as you want.